Running an online business has always come with ups and downs. And after more than 12 years as an entrepreneur, I'm very familiar with that reality. The difference is that lately I'm seeing a level of emotional exhaustion and volatility that feels heavier than normal, especially for high performing women who are smart, capable, and deeply committed to what they're building. In this episode, I'm joined by Hope Pedraza, one of my Nourished Business Accelerator alum, and she's a functional practitioner who works at the intersection of physical health, nervous system regulation, human design, NLP, and hypnotherapy. Hope helps business owners understand exactly what's driving their burnout, hypervigilance, and emotional reactivity, and more importantly, how to build resilience so that those ups and downs don't derail the business itself. In this episode, we're going to dive into why running a business can feel so emotionally exhausting right now, what's happening beneath the surface for high performers, and how to stay steady, clear, and well resourced even when things are not linear. So, if you've ever felt like you're doing everything right in your business, but you still feel drained, on edge, or just stuck in your head, this conversation will give you a completely different way to look at what's going on and what to do about it. So, let's dive in. I am so excited to have with us on the show today, Hope Pedraza. Welcome to the Nourished CEO podcast.
Thanks, Laura. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. And before we hit record, we were just chatting a little bit about all the different places and directions we could take this episode. And what I realized is that I've been having very similar conversations with a lot of people, whether it's clients or people in my audience, where they're having a lot of emotional volatility with this particular year in business. And, business in general is very up and down. I don't know how long you've been in business, but I've been in it for, I think, like 12 years at this point. So I'm kind of used to the like, okay, this is just business. This isn't like a particular phase where you're experiencing ups and downs. But I do feel like this year has been especially challenging for a lot of people, whether they're new to business or, 10 plus year veteran. And there is a lot more emotional volatility than there's been in the past. And Hope and I are going to chat about how to handle this and how to make sure it doesn't derail you from your business, because it is something where I think if it goes on long enough and it gets extreme enough, it could be something that actually causes you to not recover or to even quit, because who wants to be feeling like they're on an emotional roller coaster week to week? So before we get into it, Hope, I would just love for you to give like a quick overview of who you are and how you even got into this particular conversation of energy and, burnout and mental and emotional health, especially for people in business.
Yeah. So I am a functional practitioner, and the work that I do goes far beyond just using functional labs, which I love. But I also tie in human design. I'm an NLP practitioner, a clinical hypnotherapist, and so the work that I do, I is very comprehensive. So we're looking at the physical, the emotional, the mental, the spiritual, putting the whole piece together. And really, you know this as a business owner and everybody listening, as you evolve as a human, your business evolves with you, and so I have a brick and mortar business as well. It's a Pilates studio, and I've had that for 14 years. And so I started there, and I wanted to create this comprehensive or like holistic experience for people there. And so we had the Pilates and the HIIT and the yoga and the mindfulness and all the things. And so I started with just basic nutrition coaching. I was just a nutrition coach, and that was kind of the beginning of my evolution and my business evolution, because I was having conversations with women who were coming to work with me, and they wanted to, drop 10 pounds or whatever it is. It's very basic goals, which is nothing wrong with that. But I'm recognizing like there's actually deeper things going on in your body, right? There's gut things and hormone things and thyroid things and all these things. And so that kind of took me down the path to becoming a functional practitioner. And then as I was kind of going on my own healing journey at the time, I'm seeing like, oh, actually, we're talking about quote root cause. There's actually this energetic emotional piece. That's the actual root cause of these physical things that are showing up in the body. And so that led me to bring in things like human design and the NLP and hypnotherapy and all those things. And so for me, it's really taking that full comprehensive approach to healing. And, I know everybody listening to this podcast is here because they want to build a business without having to sacrifice their body or any other aspect of their life in the process. And that's really what I want my clients to get out of the work with me, because I tell them all the time, your business is only as healthy as the body you have to build the business. And so we have to prioritize that, all the aspects, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, all of it.
hmm What kind of shifts have you seen in the last year or so with the kind of problems or challenges that people are experiencing, whether it's physical, emotional, mental, all of the above?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. I like you, I have seen and, I've experienced it too. There is a lot of ups and downs. Like you said, when you've been in business for a while, you're like, okay, well, I'll ride the wave and eventually, we'll come back up on the other side. But there is definitely a resiliency that's required there. As with any other aspect of running a business, but having that resiliency and the like stick with itness to stick through the hard times and the valleys, right? And I do think that there is a lot of physical and emotional pieces that have been showing up this year with the women that I work with for that reason. Just, yeah, just like you said, there's a lot of volatility just in the world and business, it all kind of parallels. And so I think there's, yes, this uncertainty that we're going, that we're in this feeling of uncertainty that we're running our business in. I think there's a lot of people feeling this like when's the next shoe gonna drop kind of thing, and that's a really hard way to run a business when you're constantly waiting for the next shoe to drop
Hmm.
because you're just constantly in this state of hypervigilance and this huge energy suck. I mean, it's a huge energy suck. So I think that's the one I've seen a lot. And the other one, thinking of one of my clients I was talking to yesterday, is, when we're high achievers and high performers and we see like, metrics start to slip or the numbers start to slip, we think, well, I'll just work harder. I'll just do more and that's going to solve it. And that's also not the solution. So there's a lot of that too.
Yeah. Tell me about the hypervigilance piece. What exactly is that looking like for people,
Yeah.
and how can they know that that's a problem they're experiencing?
Yeah. I feel like this could show up in multiple different ways. It's that constant feeling what I say that the next shoe is gonna drop. So it's like waiting for the next bad thing to happen. Well, and which is really, I mean, kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. If we're waiting for the next bad thing to happen, the next bad thing is gonna happen eventually. And it's constant. It can show up in ways like, overgiving, people pleasing. Sometimes too, it's like there's an obsession with, following the metrics and the numbers, and which following metrics and numbers is not a bad thing in and of itself. Inherently, this is not a bad thing. We need to follow the metrics and the numbers. But when we're overly obsessing over it, this can be, again, it's just kind of causes ruminating thoughts and mental anxiety and mental overwhelm. And then there's analysis paralysis. And then we're second guessing every decision we're making. And I mean, the mental spiral is just like never ending at that point.
Hmm. And what do you think is the reason that some people would deal with that more than others? Because we all know people who like they love looking at the numbers and it's so fun for them, and it's not an issue for them at all. And then there's
Hmm.
the people who the numbers stress them out. If the
Yeah.
numbers aren't all always going up, it's
Yeah.
even worse. Like, what do you think is the
Yeah.
potential cause of that, or collection of causes?
I think there's a lot of, and I can say this piece from experience because I've been there too. I've been the person who's like, I want to avoid the numbers because it's not going to be what I want it to say, and I don't want to be disappointed. So I think there's like a fear. I think there's a really common feminine wound of fear of disappointment. We don't want to disappoint other people. We don't want to disappoint ourselves. So I think with women, that's a big thing. I think the other thing too is a a level of perfectionism that exists within that where it's not going to be just right, or we know it's not going up and it's going down, and so it's not, right. So the perfectionist thing can show up really big there. And I think the fear of disappointment and the fear of failure, and whether that's because we've experienced that before or it's kind of this subconscious thing that's the big fear we have that's running, our subconscious mind is this constant fear of failure. And if the numbers keep going down, we're getting closer to that, big fear that we have. So just letting fear run the show. I really feel like the most common ones, at least with the women I work with, it's that perfectionist piece and then the fear of disappointment.
Hmm. With the perfectionism piece, I tend to attract a lot of, kind of type A good student types. I
Mhm.
think just generally women in healthcare tend to kind of be
This
that
is true.
general profile. And something that I always notice is they get very frustrated when things are not linear. So they're
Yeah.
used to in school, you do the assignment that you were given, you turn it in on time, you do it the way you were told, and you get the good grade. And it's
Yep.
very like direct, you
Yes.
do what you're supposed to do and you get the outcome.
Yes. Yes.
Hopefully you all know by now that's not how business works,
It's how life
unfortunately.
works. Yeah.
Yeah, life, business, anything that's like not school basically. And that can be really stressful for them because they do all this work, they think they're doing things right, and then they don't get the result. And then it kind of causes this like shutdown of, well, now what do I do?
Mhm.
Versus this, hopefully more constructive perspective, which is, okay, what do I need to change and
Yeah.
try again?
Right.
So, is there anything that you feel like creates that extra pressure or even fear around something not working that then prevents even from learning from the experience
Mhm.
or moving forward or trying things new? Because it is something where I have noticed a lot of people coming to me, especially if they've already worked with another business coach and they're like, I need this to work. And usually that's kind of like a
Yes.
red flag as
Yes.
far as like me wanting to work with them.
Yes.
And so, what do you think creates that for people other than just like, okay, yeah, we all want to make money. We need money.
Yeah.
Money is like part of how the world works. But
Yeah.
I feel like it's more than just, oh, I need to make money, right? Because if
Yeah.
they really needed to make
Mm.
money, they could get a job.
For
So, what is
sure.
it about this has to work the first time I try it mentality that might actually get in the way of people even being successful in their
Yeah.
business?
This is a big one, and I find it so funny because at least I know in my practice, I'm always telling my clients, like, healing isn't linear. Sometimes it gets worse before it gets better. So I'm like, we're giving people this advice, but then we're like, no, but our growth has to
Because
be
this is
linear.
linear.
Yeah, yeah, right. It's like it's just so ironic, but this is a huge one, and again, I've been there before too. And I catch myself in that. But I think the perfectionist piece, of course, is there too, because you want it to be perfect. But I think the other thing too is when it's it's sometimes hard to see. So let me say this. So I if I in human design is a tool that I use in my work, right? And I'm a 3 line, which means that I am the experimenter. So literally my life is a series of trial and errors. And so I am the queen of like, let's try it and see what works. If it doesn't work, we'll try something else. Like that's how I have to live my life. And so for me, I have to keep that perspective in mind. And I try to help my clients have that perspective as well. Even if you're not a 3 line, it doesn't matter. Because the thing is, like you said, you made the point. We try something, it doesn't work. And so we try something else. So we figure out what part did work, what part didn't work. It's all a part of the learning. And I think sometimes we want to get to it's all about wanting to get to the destination, right? We want to get there. We want to get there with our business and we take out the middle part. Like we forget about the middle part where really it's the journey to get there. And I think that is such a huge perspective shift that I've had to take in my own business as well because it's really not about getting there. Because once you get this, which is why so many people make a gazillion dollars and they get there and they feel empty. They've missed the whole middle part. They've missed the whole journey of the learning and the becoming and the growing and the failing and the learning again. Like that's what it's about. And so I think we often we get this tunnel vision where we're like, I know where the end destination is. I want to get there, but it's really not about getting there. It's who you're becoming along the way. It's the learning and the growth and the struggles and the more growth. It's all of that along the way. So I think that's really the perspective shift that's required to be able to detach from the numbers or the outcome or whatever it is that we're looking for in the moment and seeing that this I'm still it's like up and down on the way up. Like you want the stock market. It's up and down on the way up. As long as we're going up and down on the way up, we know we're going the right direction. I have the vision, I have the mission. If that's what I'm leading with, we're always going to be going in the quote unquote right direction. And so it's just being able to see the failures or the slowdowns or the whatever as okay, this is an opportunity for me to learn, for me to reassess. Maybe it's time to pivot, change the way I'm doing things. And like you said, like let's be curious about it rather than this judgment of like, well, forget it. I'm a failure and it's yeah, burn it down.
Hmm. So I love that idea of up and down on the way up. And I also feel like one of the things that a lot of my clients and audience struggle with is knowing, well, how do I know that I am on the way up? Right? Like, what if this is
Mm,
up and down on the way down?
yeah. Yeah.
Right?
That's a good
So,
question.
yeah. So, is there
Yeah.
any suggestions or thoughts you have around how would somebody even know in that up and down experience that
Yeah.
the overall direction is up and not down?
Yeah, yeah, that's good. For me, I do a lot of somatic work with my clients. For me, it's all about that. It's all about getting into the body, which is why, and I'm sure most of your listeners listening are very self-aware and body aware and all of that. So this is an easy thing for them to kind of integrate. But for me, it's how does it feel in the body? If like as I talked about, the vision that we have, like if we have that mission, the vision, we know how it feels in our body to picture it, to visualize it, to have that in our mind and in our mind's eye, that's what we're striving for. As long as you can stay in touch with your body, with every decision you're making and every pivot you're making and every redirect that you're making, that's you're going to know the answer because your body is going to tell you. You're going to feel an expansive, light feeling when you're going in the right direction. You're going to feel a heavy, restrictive, contracted feeling when you maybe are not going in the right direction. So for me, it's just staying in tune with your body, letting your body, and I'm all about intuition and leaning into your intuition and letting that lead the way. But when we can make this space and really tune into our bodies on a daily basis, I mean, that's what's going to lead you because your body is going to tell you if you're going the right direction or not.
Hmm. Okay, I'm gonna put you on the spot. Not actually, no, I'm not gonna say that because I don't wanna like, create something that doesn't need to be what it is. But I would actually love to walk through an example with something I just experienced literally I think yesterday because it was such a weird moment for me where I knew I was doing the right thing, but it physically felt so bad that I had to, like, decompress for several hours
Mhm.
afterwards, and
Mhm.
I would love to know what there is to do about that, and maybe it's just, okay, I just had to go through it and I
Yeah,
needed
yeah.
to, like, get through that experience,
Yep.
but the reason I wanna talk about it is because I think having an example can be really helpful, and this is something that I think comes up for a lot of people where they're like, "This doesn't feel good, but I know it's the right thing to do."
Yeah.
So then there's that
Yeah.
conflict of like,
That's
"Well, if it doesn't
mhm.
feel good, then maybe I
Mhm.
shouldn't do it." But
Mhm.
then it's like,
Mhm.
"Oh, but I also have that because I'm probably not anywhere near as educated on human design as you are, but I know for me, I'm a splenic authority, and so it's like if I
Mm.
know something's the right thing to do, generally that's
Yes.
always been
Yes.
the
Yes. You
direction to
have the
take.
knowing. Yeah.
Yeah. And in this particular example that I'll share, the body was not on board. So so basically, I'm not gonna give all the details, but I was on a sales call with somebody who within, like, the first, like, couple minutes, I was immediately like, "This is not gonna end well. This is
Mhm.
not," the person
Mhm.
didn't remember why she had applied for the program, didn't remember anything about she never looked at the details that I sent about the program, was asking some questions about me and, like, what I do that I was like, What is going on here? What is the
Yeah.
like, what is happening right now?" So I was kind of thrown off. I was like, this was not what I was expecting going into the call. So anytime I get like just fully redirected on something like that, it's like it takes a little minute for me to
Sure.
kind of
Yeah.
get back into my
Yeah,
brain.
yeah.
But it was pretty clear to me very quickly within the call that I was like, this is not going to be a good use of my
Mhm.
time. And
Mhm.
so normally, historically, my tendency would be like, well, just like give the benefit of the doubt, just like see what happens, like, just give them the information they're asking for and maybe something will change. And I had done that a couple times recently and it was not a good experience. And it's not like anyone's mean or anything. It's just like the call goes nowhere, the person ends up, like, never answering
Yeah, it's
again, and
not a
I'm like
good fit. Yeah.
yeah, so I'm like,
Yeah.
"Why did I waste all that time?"
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
in this particular moment, I was like, "I'm not doing that again. This is it. I'm putting my foot down, I'm creating some boundaries, I'm gonna just say that this is not how this call is gonna go, and we're gonna have to end it." And physically, I was like, you would think I was getting, like, attacked by a bear. I was, like, so anxious. I was like, "Oh my gosh, I sound like I'm gonna cry. What is happening?" And then you get that, like, meta anxiety where you're, like, anxious about being
About being
anxious.
anxious,
Yeah,
yep.
because 'cause you're, like, trying to, like, have, like, an adult conversation with somebody and you're like, "Ah, like, what is happening?" So I just, like, nearly lost it on the call, and I was like, "I cannot believe that I'm reacting like this to something that's so stupid. Like, this is not that serious. What is happening?" So, the call ended, I got off, I was like, "Oh my gosh, I need to go talk to my husband and just, like, talk that out,
Get
like,
it out.
shake that
Yeah.
off."
Yeah.
Yeah. It literally took me, like, the rest of the day to, like, actually get back into, like, a neutral emotional nervous system state, and I was just like, "Well, what in the world is going on? Like, why am I physically reacting to that? So I give all that context, first of all, to tell you guys, like, I am by no means this like super zen, nothing ever rattles me kind of person. And that was a situation where I was like, wow, that was really disproportionate
Yeah,
reaction
yeah, yeah.
to
Yeah.
what was actually happening on that call, which was
Sure.
just like slight unpleasant, had to kind of say no to somebody who was asking me to do something that I didn't want to do, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
that's the context. Why do you think, and again, I know I'm also trained in NLP, so I know there's probably like a lot of like subconscious stuff that you have
Yes.
no idea what's in my subconscious, so you're
Yes.
not gonna like make any assumptions there. But what are some ideas, or maybe if I was a client, like where would you guide me on this whole situation?
Yeah.
Because the way I felt about it was I was like, I know I did the right thing. I'm proud of myself for doing that. And WTF, that just like ruined my entire day. And I'm like literally like, needing like I'm like, it would be nice to like have some medication right
Yeah.
now or something to just like erase that experience.
A
So
little sedation. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So all of that to say, do you have any thoughts about like, okay, first of all, what might have caused that kind of
Yeah.
reaction? Second of all,
Yeah.
is that something that can, be avoided in the future? Or is it
Yeah.
like, oh, it just has to happen because you have to
Yeah.
learn that lesson?
Yeah.
Where would you go with
I
me
love
on
this
that
so
one?
much. I love this story. I love listening to this, and I have so much to say. Because I actually there's a caveat to what I wanted to say the first time talking about the body, but first of all, I would if it was like having a client conversation, the feelings that were coming up in your body weren't about the fact that this thing wasn't gonna work out. It was the fact that you had to tell somebody no. And so we would need to unpack that. Like, okay, well, why were you afraid to tell somebody no? There's like people pleasing things, perhaps, or there's fear of whatever. So that the feeling in your body wasn't about the decision you need to make. It was about the actual situation. It was like more situational.
Hmm.
So for you, it's like you had the knowing, like this is the right decision, but your body was freaking out because in the instance, it's like, well, I have to tell this lady no, and I don't want to tell her no. And so it's more about that. And I say that because and I'm so glad. Are you a projector?
Manifester.
Manifestor. Okay. So I say that because one of the really big things I help my clients with when we're looking at their human design is their authority and understanding their authority. Because when I say, listening to your body's going to have the answers. It's more like know what your authority is because that's what's going to tell you. And all of that comes from the body, but it's going to come in different ways. Like you said, you're splenic. So it's going to be like this subtle, quiet, like in the moment, my intuition is telling me XYZ. I'm a sacral authority, so mine is like a bam in the moment. If it's not a heck yes in the moment, then it's a no. Like I have there's a lot of emotional authority clients where it's like, okay, I'm gonna have to give this some time and get into an emotionally neutral state. So there's different ways to make decisions, like body-based decisions, when you know how to work with your human design authority. And which is why I bring that up because you said, like, in the moment, I knew this was the right decision. So your splenic authority had kicked in. Like, I know this is a decision I need to make, but my body is like, holy cow, what the heck? Because, well, now I have to tell this lady no. And all of again, and I'm not saying your pattern is people pleasing, but I'm saying it could be something like
Oh,
that,
it
whether
definitely, yeah.
yeah.
No, you're I mean, for sure. That is the theme
Yeah.
that we've been working on.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. Having to disappoint people or, whatever, that's what your body was feeling in the moment. And so I think that, this work of being able to understand your body in this way, that's the work. And like you were so self-aware because you're like recognizing, no, I know the decision to make, but my body's like, blah. So being in tune with your body enough to be able to recognize that. And because sometimes there is that duality. Because I do that all the time with my sacral authority. Like in the moment, I know my sacral, it's not a heck yes, but in my head, I'm like, no, but I really want to do this. But my body's like, is saying no. So like there can be that battle where your head and your mind or whatever are telling you two different your body and your mind are telling you two different things. But that's where there's power in understanding your energetic blueprint, understanding the signs and the signals that your body is giving you when you're making decisions and that kind of thing.
mhm. So when somebody's having kind of like a mismatch of physical sensations or emotional reactions to something versus maybe in their, whether it's like just a gut instinct or, intuition, or they've already made a decision, but now they're starting to have some emotions about it. Cause I do think for business, this is a really big problem for people where they make a decision and then the emotion comes up
Mhm.
and they freak out, or,
Mhm.
oh, I know this is the right thing to do, but oh my gosh, that feels so bad. Like, it's and I think it is tempting. That's probably in the past been a reason why, and in this particular example, I would stay on the call until I felt like, okay, I've literally given them everything I can possibly give, and they're still not, understanding or moving forward. So at least I feel like I've done what I needed to do kind of thing versus this time I was like, I'm not gonna do that. I'm just not. And so with that situation where your body is reacting like that, what can somebody do in the short term
Mm.
to even move past that or to address that? Because I know for me personally, I was like, all right, I need to like get outside and like just
Yes.
touch grass or whatever.
Yeah.
But the like once everything kind of like settled down, I started to kind of like do the play by play of like, okay, what would have created that reaction? And what's that telling me about my beliefs? Because I
Mhm.
realized like what it actually meant, the fact that I was so freaked out about this idea of like ending the call early, telling her, no, I'm not doing what you're asking me to do with, this particular conversation. I realized that for whatever reason, it must mean that I think her time is actually more valuable than mine because I felt bad that I was quote wasting her time by
Mm.
like ending the call early, that
Mm.
she had booked this time and I should give her her time versus being like, no, actually, my time is valuable too, and me spending my time doing something that she could have watched a video that I had sent her 7 times before the call,
Mhm.
like, that's to me indicating that there's some belief I have that needs unraveling around why is somebody else's time more valuable
More
than
valuable.
mine?
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So, like, that's my process. That was not in the moment. The moment was
Yeah.
like, "Get me the F off this call," but a few hours later, I was like, "Okay, let's unravel, go to the
Yes.
play-by-play here." So, is there anything somebody can do short term, long term, where moments like this, which are bound to come up, like, how do they handle those in a way that's more productive versus, like, I could have had this experience, but, like, "I'm never doing a sales call again," or,
Yeah.
"Everything's terrible," and blah, blah, blah. Like, there's a
Yeah.
lot of ways that that could have gone that would have not been productive for my business.
Yeah. I think the way you handled it was what I would recommend. Like, okay, let's like get to an emotionally neutral place and like a regulated place. And let's unpack this. Like, let's unpack what was coming up and beliefs and all of that, which is, why I love to use the subconscious work that I do with my clients because it's the answers will come up. And I think it's
Mhm,
really just taking the time to understand your patterns and your beliefs that lead to your behavior. I mean, that's all it is. That's what leads to behavior. It's your patterns, it's your thoughts, your patterns, your beliefs lead to your behaviors. And so I think it is just taking this space to unpack that because the more you take the time to unpack it after it happens, the more you're going to have the tools in the moment to be able to think on the fly. Like, hold on, my time is valuable too. So I don't feel bad about this because XYZ, right? So we can unpack and really start to be more have that awareness of the beliefs that are running the show, the thoughts, all of that. That's how we have the tools in the moment to be able to handle the situations with not saying you're never going to get dysregulated by a situation like that, but maybe it's less dysregulation and maybe it's you just feeling more resourced in the moment to be able to handle it and not let yourself get so out of whack.
mhm. So what would be some indicators that subconscious programming is actually, I mean, I know knowing what I know about NLP, I know it's like all subconscious programming, but
Yeah.
what would be some indicators that that's something that needs addressing when they're having either emotions or thoughts or experiences within their business that are not aligned with the direction they want to go in? Because I feel like there can be a big difference between, oh, this feels bad because it's the bad or it's the wrong choice for me versus, oh, this feels bad because I'm like butting up against
It's uncomfortable. Yeah.
yeah, like
Yeah.
it's something that's in there that needs
Right.
addressing
Right.
that I haven't addressed.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. And I think I just did an article on this on Substack about this because I think there is a big difference between is it uncomfortable or is it wrong for me? Because a lot of times we want to misinterpret the two and it's like, oh no, it's uncomfortable. That has to be wrong. When a lot of times the discomfort is it's the right thing. It's just out of your comfort zone and it doesn't feel safe in your nervous system. So I think first, and this is like I'm saying the same thing over and over again, but I do think that when we really understand our body, we're able to discern the two better just because we have better. We're able to, I talk to my clients about understanding the language of their body. So when because everybody's body language of their body is different. And so when you really understand your own, you're able to have more discernment between those two. And also, I think that when you're when you're in situations like yours, for example, when you're in these kind of hard situations, or you're in situations that require some sort of like decision making or confrontation or something like that, you know what an energy draining activity is versus an energy fueling activity. And I think a lot of times that's where we can pinpoint where those patterns and beliefs are. Because if you're having conversations about price or whatever for your program or your offer, and every time you're having the conversation, you have this kind of feeling about it because you're undercharging, you're undervaluing it. Like, that's a sign right there. There's a belief right there. I don't feel good about this price that I'm telling this person. So there's something there. When you're having a conversation like you, okay, I had this conversation. I know this is not an aligned client, but say you would have taken her anyway. Well, I need the money. But you're going to feel crap about it the whole time. There's a belief there, right? So I think if we can start to have that awareness in the moment when we're making decisions and when we're doing things in our business, that's how we start to build that overall awareness to be able to discern between, is this thing feel weird or bad because it's actually wrong for me, or does this feel weird or bad because it's uncomfortable? It's all just awareness. It's all just gathering data. We were talking about gathering data earlier. For me, it's like every decision I make in my business, everything I decide to do in my business, it's all just data gathering. I'm gathering data for what works and what doesn't work in my business, but I'm also gathering data for what feels good to me and what doesn't feel good to me. I am a huge believer in building a business outside the box if it doesn't feel good. And if it feels energy draining to me, I don't want to do it that way. And so I feel like if we are able to really tune into that and collect the data in all of these instances, that's how we can start to have those tools, like I was talking about, and be resourced and to be able to catch it in the moment or rewire it after the moment, right? When we catch it and we can kind of start to repattern all of those things that could be running the show.
Mhm. Now, I know we had talked before we hit record a little bit about this concept of your identity being attached to your business success, the
Mm,
income, the productivity, all of that. How does that show up in ways that maybe are a little bit more subtle? Because I think
mhm.
like people think, "Oh, my value's not in my business," but then it's like, okay, but that's maybe because your business is going well. So the minute that it like stops going well, it's like, "Oh, now I'm noticing maybe
Yes.
this is where my identity is." Or like with the productivity piece, I am very, very clear on the fact that before I had kids, my productivity was a lot different than it is now. It's just like it's not even remotely the same.
Mm.
And it is something where if my worth was really in my productivity, I would be in a really bad state right now because it's just like, you know, 20% of what it was before kids. And so I do think it can be very situational where if life's going well, if things are going well, if you're on the up part of the up and down, it's like maybe the stuff isn't showing up. But what would be some signs that misplaced identity or worth is
Mhm.
at least part of the equation for the way that things are going
Yeah.
emotionally, mentally, any of
Yeah.
that.
That's good. And that is true because I think that is typical when people recognize it. They don't recognize it when things are going good. It's like once things are maybe going not so good, they're like, wait, hold on. Why do I feel the way I feel? I think a lot of times we fail to recognize the dopamine hits we get in our business, right? The big sales and the numbers and the metrics and the followers or the whatever it is. And a lot of times we don't recognize that we're doing it for the dopamine hit. This is a big pattern that I've recognized. This is a pattern what a mentor of mine who we worked with last year. And it was consciously, I'm doing this thing because I think, oh, this is good for my business. But subconsciously, I'm doing it for the dopamine hit because if people buy it, I get to feel good about myself. So I think there's a piece of like really being able to understand why you're doing what you're doing in your business, like the motive behind what you're doing in your business. That can be a really telling thing. And if you really stop and think about it, everything that you're doing, is it really for the betterment of your business or for your clients or to serve and support the people you're serving? Or Is there this ego-driven thing behind it? And there's no judgment there because I'm like I said, I've been there. I've been the one doing all the things where I'm like, "No, no, this is because 'cause I'm serving people." And it's like, "No, you just want the dopamine hit for the followers or the buy, the sales or whatever." So I think that's a big piece of it is really asking those questions to yourself, like, "Why am I doing this?" What the why behind the things that you're doing in your business. And because a lot of that you'll find is it is attached to your worth. I'm doing it because I need the validation, the external validation from the sales or the followers or the new clients or whatever, because that makes me feel good about myself and that makes me feel worthy. And that can be so tricky and that can be so sneaky because like I said, it can seem like, oh no, but I'm serving these people, I'm supporting these people, I'm helping these people heal their bodies, blah, blah, blah. But the energy behind everything that you're doing up to that point was because I need the sales and I need the likes and I need the subscribes or whatever. So I think that's probably the starting point for me is like really being honest with yourself. Like, what's the reason, the intention behind this thing that I'm creating in my business? And then kind of going back to what we were saying before, a lot of the sneaky ways that the worthiness piece shows up is, it's the undercharging or it's the people pleasing or it's the overgiving or it's the being afraid to disappoint people. So I don't have any boundaries, that kind of thing. Those things all show up and it all goes back to the worthiness piece too.
Mhm. I'd love to, if we can, just go a little deeper on the dopamine piece because I do think that that's something that people don't necessarily notice. And I feel like generally the world has been trending in this like dopamine saturated environment in
Totally.
general to the
Yeah.
point where it's like, how much of it is the way that we're running our business and how much of it is just like the world right now is
Yeah.
just, kind of going crazy with it, especially with all the AI stuff. Like I'm not anti AI. I love having that as a tool, but just with AI, the way that it is now, there's so much information that we now are getting like bombarded with versus it used to take a lot of time and energy to put information out, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
it is something where I do think a lot of people, I'm sure myself included, as far as like just, the phase of life that I'm in, are a little or a lot dysregulated with even just their nervous system, their neurotransmitters, that kind of thing. What might be the tell for somebody that they're doing something for a dopamine hit versus doing something because it's the right thing to do in their business or it's, aligned with
Yeah.
their bigger vision of their business?
Yeah. I think this is a really nuanced thing and it's gonna really depend on your body. But I think the sign really for me, and I just use myself as an example, is and you think about like you said, we are in a very that's like the scrolling through social media and the likes and the follows, like all of that is dopamine driven. All of it is. And so if you feel like there's this energy of like needing, like it's like the needing energy, right? For me, that's kind of the telltale sign. And like you get, say it's about sales, like I'm selling this workshop or whatever, and I need the sales. If you feel this like rush when you get the notification, like the Stripe notification or the email notification, you get a rush where you're like, I need more. That to me, that's the sign. It's like you need more. It's like a drug addict needs more, right? It's the dopamine hit. It's the same kind of energy. And I want to equate the two, but you know what I'm saying. So it's really that needing energy of like I need more and I need more and more and more to be satisfied. Because that's typically what it gets to. Eventually it's like, well, now I need more sales and I need more sales and I need more. Because that the more I get, the more I'm satisfied. And it's just like it's this constant cycle of needing more. And it's just that yeah, it's I think for me, it's that just kind of needy, grabby energy behind it and that feeling of like, yeah, it's I don't want to say excitement because it's being excited and needing more are two different things. You can be excited about a sale, of course. I'm going to be excited about a sale, but if you feel like now I need another one, that's kind of the energy behind like that dopamine hit. Is you need more and more and more to get that dopamine hit.
Yeah. Well, I think also what you just said about it being more total to get the same excitement. Like it's
Yeah.
like, a sale used to be exciting and now it's like a sale is like, okay, well, it's not as many sales as I want. And
Yes,
it's like now I need
exactly.
5 sales or now I need
Yes.
10 sales or now
To
I
feel
need.
that same level of like, oh, yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah, I would not be surprised. I mean, it's hard. It's really hard to have a separation between I'm genuinely excited that this person bought, you know, thank you for this money coming in, like
Mhm.
all of that. you don't want to just be like dead to everything and
Of
be like, none of
course.
this means
Yes,
anything.
yes.
But I do think it's kind of like a slippery slope into that, like you said, kind of the slot machine experience where you need to put more and more into it
Yes.
until you get the reward.
Yep.
And I do think that could be a reason why a lot of the people I work with who are more advanced in their business lose a lot of the initial enjoyment they had of running their business. It's not that their ideal client has changed. It's not that their offer has changed. It's not that like anything internally in the business has changed. It's like they just, the things that used to feel good to them now don't feel good anymore
Mhm.
because it just was a dopamine hit and
Yes.
not like
Exactly.
genuine,
Yep.
this feels good and this feels like the way I want to
Yep.
move through my life.
Yep.
So that totally makes a lot of sense. And how do you think that that affects somebody's trajectory in their business?
Yeah, I mean, if you're constantly chasing the dopamine hits, like you said, you're going to need more. I mean, it's a recipe for burnout, really, is what it is. Because, like you said, you're going to need more and more and more and more and more. And then just by human nature, we end up thinking, well, I have to do more and more and more and more and more to get that. And so it just ends up being this like constant cycle of having to do more to get more to feel more. And it's just a recipe for burnout. I mean, it's a huge, I talked about energy suck earlier. I talk to my clients about energy leaks. I mean, it's a huge energy leak. When we can release the neediness around it. We can detach from it and be completely detached from whether the sale happens or not, right? And come from a place of service. Of course, we can still come up from a place of service and get the dopamine hit, but coming from a place of service, and I don't need this sale to feel good about myself. I don't need this sale to feel like I'm a good coach or whatever you are. I don't need this sale to feel XYZ, right? That's the detachment piece.
Yeah, which I mean, it sounds very logical, and then I know
Yeah,
the actual, like,
exactly.
emotional experience can be a little tougher for a lot of us.
Yes.
So, that said, I know, there's probably a lot of different things people could do, but what would be, like, the first 1 or 2 things you'd recommend for somebody who's listening to this episode and is like, "Holy cow, this is me. I'm, like, dopamine addicted to the money in my business or the engagement on my Instagram or the number of clients I have or whether or not I get a yes on a sales call." Like, what would be the first 1 or 2 steps that would help kind of break that connection for them?
Yeah. I think the first thing I would say is to this might be not the maybe not the exciting answer people want to hear, but I feel like the first step would be going back to your big why. Like, why did you start this in the first place? It wasn't to get the dopamine hit. And I think everybody comes from everybody listening to this, because you talk about it in such a way that everybody's listening to this has come from a true place of service. That's why they started their business. And so I think if you can go back to your why and redefine your mission, or revisit or redefine your mission, I think that's where it starts, because I think that's where we can go back to that place of service and release the need to have the sale and have the clients, because it all goes back to the why of why you created this in the first place, regardless of who buys and who purchases or who whatever. It's just, yeah, I think it's just revisiting, reminding yourself why I started this in the first place, and to be able to kind of take that first step to detaching from the outcome, or like the getting to there, like we were talking about.
Mhm. And then are there any, like, physical body related steps maybe that
Yeah.
somebody could take in the short
Yeah.
term to just start feeling a little bit more balanced?
Yeah, that's good. I There's a lot, really. I'm trying to think which one I want to say. I'm a huge fan of EFT tapping, so I feel like that's a really good tool to use, and it's such an easy one to use. And you can get on YouTube and search EFT tapping for XYZ, and you'll pull some things up. I think EFT tapping is great, and also I think just finding the thing, whatever the thing is for you that gets you into your mindfulness space, whether it's like you were talking earlier about, like, I need to get outside and step on the grass, whatever, whether it's going outside or going for a walk or being in nature or being in the garden. I have one of my clients who likes to paint, so having your mindfulness thing, whatever that is, and being really intentional with that. Because I think I mean, we know this on a conscious level. Like, there's value in getting out of our heads and getting into our bodies and, letting our body to go. There's value in that. But knowing it and doing it are a lot of times two different things. And I think so often we just kind of skip over that stuff and Especially when, like you're saying, with begin the conversation, when we're feeling like there's volatility and I don't know what my business is gonna do next month and blah, blah, blah. That's not the time to let go of the mindfulness practices. Like, that's like the worst possible time to let those go by the wayside. So I think that's the other thing too, is just finding the thing for you that gets you into that mindfulness space, meditation, breath work, prayer, whatever works for you, and being really intentional with that time for yourself throughout the week to help you be able to detach, because that's a lot of times when we can work on like the rewiring and detaching from all of those things, just letting our like going back into ourselves, listening to our intuition or talking to God or whatever it is, we can start to repattern those things with that time.
Yeah, and I know for a lot of people when things are dicey, they are stressed, or, maybe they're like, I need to work harder to do the
Yeah.
dopamine hit thing. Slowing down and being still is not
Yeah.
the go-to behavior,
Exactly.
right? It's like
Exactly.
I could either sit here and pray for 30 minutes, or I could go write a bunch of emails,
Yep.
or I could go post something on Instagram, right? And
Yep.
I think like
Yep.
for a lot of us, myself included, the default tendency is to do something that feels productive,
Productive. Yeah.
and it doesn't always feel productive to do the more
Right.
mindfulness,
Yes.
intuition-based things.
That's it.
But I will say whenever I've you know, reminded myself to do those things, it is pretty clear the positive impact it has,
Yeah.
and both in the short term, physically, mentally, all of that, but also results wise in the business, it actually
Yeah.
does make a
For
big
sure.
impact. So it's like trying to remember, no, this is productive. It doesn't feel productive because it's
Yes.
like, slowing down and breathing and all of that, but it is paradoxically a lot more productive
Yeah.
than just like,
Yeah.
stress writing an email that you're
For
trying to send to your
sure.
list.
Yes, that's probably not even gonna be that good. So
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
it's like when you're doing it from that stress energy, it's like it's not gonna be great anyway. It's not gonna be your best work. It's that whole
Mhm.
idea of slowing down to speed up. Like that's what it's about. And two, I always tell my clients too, like if it feels completely dysregulated to sit still, then go on a walking meditation, right? Go on a you can still move your body and do a mindfulness activity. You don't have to sit still if that's totally like equally dysregulating to you as sitting still, then you can still, have movement. That's why you find what works for you in the moment, but it still requires you to turn off your brain and step away. And yeah,
Yeah. So, I feel like we could probably spend another hour talking
I
about
think
all of
so too.
this. That said, where can people learn more about what you do or get deeper on this if they are realizing, "Hey, this is probably a really big problem that needs solution," and, even just to feel better about their business? Because again, it's like, yes, we all wanna make more money, but not at the expense of our day-to-day
Right.
well-being, which is the
Yeah,
whole point of this podcast. So,
exactly.
if somebody is questioning, "Hey, maybe this is not the way that my life and day-to-day business operations should feel," what would you have for them, or where would they go to
Yeah.
get more?
Yeah. So I'm most active on Instagram. I'm at the Hope Pedraza. You can find me there. Hope Pedraza, the Hope Pedraza. My website is hopefulandwholesome.com. I also have a podcast by the same name, the Hopeful and Wholesome podcast. And then I do have a little freebie for your audience. It's the Holistic Energy Detox. And so it's kind of putting together a lot of the things we were talking about today for the body, the mind, and the soul. And it's giving all of those areas a good detox to just kind of help patch the energy leaks and, find where you're leaking energy and where we can rewire and reframe things and start to heal holistically so that you have the body and the vitality to build your business.
Mhm. Well, we'll definitely link to that in the show notes, and I hope that this conversation has at least given you guys perspective on the fact that this is, I would say, relatively common as far
Mhm.
as people having this experience. I don't think the amount of money you make necessarily impacts it. I don't think the number of followers that you have
Mhm.
impacts it. I think for a lot of people, this is I really almost think for most people, this is kind of the natural and fortunate progression of being in business and being exposed to all of the stuff that we get exposed to as part of running our business. And this is one of the reasons I even wanted to bring this podcast back online, because I just think we need a place to not, first of all, have 7 seconds of content. I like to have, 45 to 60 minutes of
Mhm.
content to get deep on stuff, but also just being able to realize that a lot of the stuff that's going on isn't just the way it has to be, and that, the rat race, the hustle culture, the put your self-worth in your business, kind of like subtle messaging or very overt messaging does not have to be the way that we run things. So I just want everyone to take a deep breath and realize this is probably pretty normal if you're feeling this way. And it doesn't have to just stay that way. There can be, a better way to run things and a more enjoyable way to run things. So, Hope, thank you for
Thank
sharing all of that with me and being up for the
you.
the winding
It
trail that
was
I took you
great. I
down.
loved it. Thank you, Laura. Thanks for having me. This is awesome.
Yeah. Well, thanks for hanging out with us, guys. We'll see you here next week on the Nurse CEO podcast. Bye, y'all. If you're listening to this and realizing that you're ready for more in your business, more income, more alignment, more confidence in the value of your work, then I want to invite you into a deeper level of support. Inside my mentorship, the Nourished Business Accelerator, I help coaches and experts like you create a premium offer that reflects the actual transformation they deliver and build a clean, sustainable system for enrolling dream clients consistently, all without cold DMs, manipulative tactics, or high pressure sales calls that make your stomach turn. Everything we do is grounded, ethical, and designed to help you grow with integrity and ease. When you're doing work that runs this deep, you deserve real mentorship from someone who's been through every season of business and can walk you through it step by step. And the truth is, growth feels so much more aligned and so much more powerful when you're surrounded by an intimate group of ambitious, ethical entrepreneurs who are committed to building their businesses the right way, not the hustly, performative way that the online world so often pushes. Most people don't realize how heavy their business feels until they finally experience what it's like to be supported at this high of a level. The NBA is the space where you will stop second-guessing yourself, stop piecing things together alone, and step fully into the leadership and strategy that make your business feel profitable, spacious, and deeply aligned with who you are. So, if you're ready to grow your business in a way that honors your expertise, supports your offline life, and helps you impact more clients without burning yourself out in the process, the NBA is your next step. To learn more or apply now, send me a DM on Instagram with the word NBA to @LauraSchoenfeldRD, or you can check the show notes for the link. I would love to support you as you grow into your next level as an online entrepreneur.